Welcome to Audio Branding, the hidden gem of marketing. Sound plays a more important role in human behavior and our decision-making than you may realize. In this podcast, I'll help you understand the art and science of sound so you can better influence others in business and your life. I'm your host, Jodi Krangle. Let's delve a little deeper. Welcome, Jem. Thank you so much for joining me today. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on your show, Jodi. I've been looking forward to this.
Likewise, yeah. So is it warm over there? I have to ask.
It is. And it's funny, down where I live, I'm on the southern coast of Australia, down in Victoria, and the weather is very unpredictable. Even in summer, we can have very warm days like we've had for the last few days, but then it can turn cold again pretty quickly. So unlike the top end of Australia, that's always hot, and they have a wet season and a dry season, so it's always hot, but half of the year there's a lot of rain, and then the other half of the year there's no rain.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just going to say you're very lucky to have warm weather right now because it is frigid cold and snowing where I am. Yes, yeah. I would rather be where you are.
Yeah, look, I'm grateful. I was on the beach with our puppy yesterday. We've got a 10-month-old little mini Labradoodle whom I adore. And we were on the beach yesterday and swimming in the ocean together, which was lovely. However, having said that, it's funny you mentioned the snow. Talia, my partner Talia, said to me last night, "Baby, can we do a white Christmas one year? Can we go somewhere?" And because we see all of the Christmas movies and all the Christmas TV shows and everything, it's all, snow and sleds and that kind of thing. And we're down here in our board shorts on the beach. So,
I hear that Germany has really interesting Christmas markets. And one of these days, I would love to check that out.
Yeah. I did. I was lucky enough when I was a backpacker, as a teenager, to have a Christmas in Austria, in a small town in Austria. And it was exactly like out of the movies. So, he had the families pulling the kids down the street in little sleighs, and, the brass quartet up in the parapet playing, and everyone standing out drinking Glühwein and eating yummy roasted walnuts or whatever,
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That sounds like a true Christmas, definitely.
That felt like a true Christmas. I felt like I was in a movie. Yeah.
I'll bet. Yeah, it sounds beautiful. Yeah. We're going from the visual experience into the audio experience here. So I want to ask you if you have a story of an early memory of how sound moved you.
Yeah, memories, plural, they kind of blur into one, but I grew up in a very musical family, and my mum and dad and their closest friends would come together in our house and around the piano and would rehearse songs together, and they all sang beautiful harmonies, and they would then go and perform voluntarily for free. They would go and sing in nursing homes or hospitals and, do this as a charity. But as a young person from forever, from a baby right through, I would quite often be going to sleep to the sounds of a cappella harmonies.
Oh, beautiful. Isn't that a nice way to go to sleep?
Yeah, it felt normal to me and nice, And the other day, Mum still manages to lead a choir of sorts. There's a group of women down the coast here, and she brings them together and they sing. And they happened to be having rehearsals at my house. I live on a farm last week, and
nice?
Mum apologized and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. We're going to be having rehearsals at your place. Is that okay?" And I said, "Of course, that's okay." And she was a bit apologetic about them rehearsing in the lounge room, and I was like, "No, this is great. I love this." So I got to have flashbacks to my childhood and listen to these women singing beautiful harmonies in the next room.
Oh, wonderful. I love it. Yeah. How does the dog handle that? I'm curious. What does the puppy do?
Yeah, the puppy's good. That's good.
Good.
The puppy's pretty desensitized to that sort of thing, to music especially. We've always got music playing.
That's good.
And, I play the guitar and sing and the piano and sing. And so there's always a bit of music going on. The puppy gets more unsettled if there's, strangers walking by out on the street or something like that. Or,
Yes.
yeah,
The territory thing. Yes.
the territory thing. Yeah.
Yes, of course. Well,
Yeah.
so how did you go from that memory and working in music to working in sound as you are now? What made that study of communication really come up for you?
Mm. Wow, that's a 53-year journey, Jodi. That's a 53-year
I know it's a big
journey.
one. It's a big one.
Yeah, but it's interesting. It's also a beautiful question, because when you look back over your life through the lens of a particular question, then other themes emerge, in the memories and in the consciousness. And so, look, I think sound has always been a really important part of my life. And whether it was literally as a kid growing up and a musician, my mum, I'm actually grateful now. I used to really, hate is a strong word, but I really didn't like it at the time when I was 4 years old, and right through my childhood, mum would force me to learn the piano. So my half an hour of practice was 6 a.m. every morning, and then my sister's was 6:30.
Wow.
And she forced us to learn the piano and practice every day. And at the time, I resented it. I was like, I don't want to get up and practice the piano.
Yeah.
But now I'm so grateful that I did, because knowing how to play, and I learnt Suzuki method, which is by ear. So I can listen to a song on the radio and sit down and just play it on the piano. And I can also jam with other musicians, because I do everything by ear.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so grateful for that, because it opened up a world of being able to make music with people. And then I learnt the saxophone all through high school, and did that as a high school subject, and went to the conservatory. And, so music's always been there in a very literal sense. But then also I was, when I was going through high school, I had the lead role in all of the musicals. So I always had the lead role
Oh, good for you.
in a musical, and I wanted to be an actor. That's all I wanted to do.
Okay.
And eventually I got into the National Institute of Dramatic Art here in Australia, which is the most coveted drama school to get into. And, Mel Gibson went there, and Judy Davis and Kate Blanchett went there. And I thought, wow, I've made it. I was a 20-year-old thinking, I'm going to be famous. I'm going to be a Hollywood star,
Well, it's at 20 that you would be thinking that, right?
Right. It's at 20 that you would be wanting that.
Yes.
At
Yeah.
53, I'm glad that didn't happen.
Well,
But
what did happen?
Well, it was interesting, because even studying drama, of course, we studied voice. Voice was one of, the most important parts of being an actor. Your voice is your tool. And, we studied voice, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that. I ended up falling in love with traveling more than acting. I did act for a while. I got some work on some TV series here in Australia, and, did lots of theatre and, a few B-grade films. Mm-hmm. But then my passion, or my thirst, or my curiosity, my desire to immerse myself into foreign cultures and to experience the world and the parts of the world that were really different to where I grew up is what drew me. And so I traveled all through my 20s, and I kind of moved away from wanting to be an actor. But all through my 20s, writing. I've always written songs. That's been my therapy.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Is to write songs. And so through writing songs and making music and, playing interesting instruments like the didgeridoo. And
that is definitely an interesting instrument. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, because it's all harmonics. Vibration and harmonics. And then I became fascinated with the mathematics that sits behind sound, because sure. The vibration of what's actually occurring is beautifully explained mathematically as well. And there's a real beauty to that language to describe the vibrational tones and the harmonics as well. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's an intellectual side to it, and then there's the experiential side, as you know, when you're singing or humming, or even when you're chanting, and I've spent a lot of time in India, and they call them bhajans, and bhajans are just repetitive phrases or songs with a lot of repetition, and it's a meditation through song, and you end up being able to experience trance-like states, which is a whole other aspect of sound as well.
Well, it's communal too, right?
Yeah,
So
and it's communal.
You doing it with other people makes it more impactful. So yeah, and I guess the easier the tune is or the easier the movement is, if you're doing it with people, they can, you become one kind of
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah, really, really. It was interesting. I was one time in a small town in Rajasthan, in India, and Rajasthan is your stereotypical India, where they wear turbans and they have those beautiful slipper shoes with the toes that curl up, and the men have big moustaches, and there's camels, and that's Rajasthan. And I was in a small village there, and it was a special. I'm trying to remember which special ceremony it was or time. I can't remember which one it was, but I heard this beautiful music coming from somewhere at night, and I walked around trying to find where it was coming from, and I just followed my ear. I was with a couple of other backpackers, and we found this little inner temple, and we kind of made our way in, and we got invited in, and it was very busy in there. There were lots of people sitting on the floor, and we sat on the floor, and there were these classical Indian musicians sitting up the front, and lots of sadhus. Sadhus are the holy men seeking enlightenment with the long dreadlocks, and lots of sadhus sitting around, and they all smoke. The sadhus smoke hashish. So there's all this hashish smoke in the air, but these musicians were stunning, like really, really good. Probably some of Rajasthan's best musicians. And they have a singer, and then they have the tabla player and the sitar player. And as they go into this repetition and everybody's singing the bhajan, and after some time, I really did have one of those experiences where I became one with everyone in the room and everything. And it wasn't an out-of-body experience per se. It was I still felt in body, but I felt embodied with everyone in that room, the music and all the people. And it was quite a spiritual experience, which is, I guess, what they're intending on creating.
Yeah, expanded consciousness, I guess, maybe you would call it. Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Really fascinating stuff. Yeah. I mean, I know you've traveled a lot of different places. So India was one of them. Where else have you been?
Oh, wow.
No, big question. Yeah.
Lots
but
of
music
places.
Specifically, like if there is a place that you went to that the music really made an impression on you, besides India, because we just talked about that one. But yeah.
Oh, look, I mean, it's interesting when you go to places, sometimes where music has made an impression is because it hasn't matched my understanding of tonality and what sounds good. Mm-hmm. So in Tibet, which I know is close by to India, but also in certain monasteries in Thailand as well, the more Buddhist music sounds really jarring to us. There's a lot of clanging of cymbals, and the instruments seem discordant. Mm-hmm. The scales are different. And it sounds out of tune. Sounds really out of tune, but that, it's remarkable to our ear because we're like, what is this noise they're making? It sounds like noise, but to them, I'm sure it's music because that's, the way they're tuned.
Yeah, there's something about discordant notes, I guess, that really makes us pay attention.
Yeah.
So that might be what they were trying to do. I don't know. I've
Who
never
knows?
been, so I'm not sure. But yeah, it just seems really fascinating to me how it can create a communal experience, whether it's music that we're familiar with or music we're not familiar with.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of those universal languages, and it is really fascinating to study that kind of thing. I'm sure that's part of what you're doing.
Yeah, part of what I'm doing. I mean, I work now primarily in communication, and I get my work as a leadership coach, but then really when I'm in there working with leaders, it's around communication and how do they communicate initially with themselves, what's that like, and then with the people around them, because without communication, communication underpins our ability to be successful in anything that we do. When I say successful, I mean to get the results we're hoping to get. And whether that's in a personal relationship and the result is love and harmony and connection and rapport, or whether that's in a professional context and the air quotes, result that you're wanting to get is to have, a team of people that flourish and thrive together and do great things. Our ability to communicate is really underpinning that, all of that. So it's more important than most people give it time or consideration to. And I think because communication is so fundamental, it tends to get overlooked a little bit. And so much of the communication is in the tonality, and the vibration and the body language and the subtleties. And I think that's where, in this changing world where AI will be doing a lot of the things that we used to do much better than us. And people are asking me, how will we be relevant? And it's interesting that AI is emerging through large language models, right? So AI is emerging through its ability to master language, which is really interesting. But I think that what AI won't be able to do for quite a long time is the more energetic. When I say energetic, I mean energy, vibrations,
yes.
more of that subtle human to human connection that can't be replicated just with the words, because the words are only 15% of it.
Yeah,
it's the way, the tone, the way we say it, the way we look into each other's eyes, the way we or don't look into each other's eyes, the subtle, even just when you're in the same room as someone, the subtle change in their skin color, depending on what they're feeling. All of these beautiful, intricate little cues of communication that go on between humans. I think AI is still a long way away from being able to do that.
Yeah. And it can't understand when we do something contrary. Like, for instance, if we're listening to a sad song to make us feel happier, it doesn't understand that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of human consciousness, I think, that is still a mystery, thankfully.
Thankfully.
To AI. I don't know how long it'll take for that to not be a problem anymore, but I hope it'll take a long time.
Yeah, I think it will take a long time. I mean, we are no closer to understanding consciousness.
Oh, yeah.
And we've had a lot of people in scientific fields trying to understand it. And they all just admit and say, we actually have got no idea. We don't know why consciousness exists. We don't know how it exists. We don't know where it begins and ends. We don't. I mean, when do the lights switch on for a baby in utero? We don't know. When does the line of consciousness stop? When you go from a human to a dog to a cat to a mouse to a spider to an ant to bacteria? Where does it stop? We don't know.
Yeah, when does our consciousness end? When we die? Like, how long does it take for it to go away? Where does it go? Does it go somewhere?
Does it go somewhere? Yeah.
I mean, we don't know these things, right? But you also wrote a book that you've called The Art of Conscious Communication. So you must be thinking about this.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Look, I think about it a lot, and I'm fascinated. I listen to a lot of people, experts, talking about consciousness per se. But quite simply, what I mean by the title of the book, The Art of Conscious Communication, to be more conscious is to be more aware, more awake, more aware. When we're conscious of something, we're aware of it. When we're not conscious of something, we're just not aware of it. So the art of conscious communication is just to be more aware in the communication and of the communication itself. And communication is about more than one person usually, right? Unless you're communicating with yourself, and there's chapters in the book on that. But when we are communicating, there's a we, and to be more aware of the higher purpose of the collective rather than just what my ego wants or what my beliefs are, to listen more and to seek to understand and to be genuinely curious about opposing points of view, and also to be more and more aware of the other person and their subtle cues. What are they feeling? What emotions might be accompanying what they're saying? And I think it's fascinating, but it's also really functional to get better at being more conscious in communication.
Oh, certainly. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely why I wanted to talk with you today. I think we could all learn a thing or two about better communication.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to ask you if you could talk a little about your conscious communication method, which you do mention in the book.
So can you give us maybe some hints on how to be better at this?
Yes. Yeah. Look, I think the place to start is to continue to develop more and more awareness of self. Because more often than not, we're getting in our own way in terms of the communication. And what I mean by that is that our ego, which is our sense of identity, is necessarily defensive. Ego is not a bad thing, by the way. Apparently we're meant to have one because we've all got one. It's just our sense of identity.
But I don't know that we'd have a consciousness without it, honestly.
Yeah.
Would we? That's I mean, it's a question because we don't know when consciousness starts or ends, or what animals have it, what don't, again.
I think there is consciousness without ego. I've experienced moments where ego is not there, only glimpses, but I've experienced moments where ego is not there and I was still aware. And so there is still a consciousness, but there was no sense of I, like the I had gone. And I've experienced that through
a meditative state or?
Yeah, so I've experienced it through meditation. I've experienced it through psychedelics. I've experienced it through plant medicine. I've experienced it through trance states, transcendental states, where the experience of I being a separate me from everything disappears, but I'm still conscious. But it's not I'm conscious. It's as consciousness. You are consciousness. It's really hard to explain, but you can experience it. But I do think that it's our ego that quite often gets in the way, because our ego is necessarily defensive, right? It's a defense mechanism. It's there to keep us safe. And so when the ego feels threatened, it gets really, it holds on really tightly to the way it thinks things should be. Our ego identifies with our politic. It identifies with our ideology. It identifies with our religious or spiritual beliefs, the ego. And so that's why people are so easily divided, which is, kind of sad and frustrating to watch what's happening with a lot of humanity at the moment, is that the algorithms and the political agendas are so easily dividing people and pitting them against each other. And the reason that humans are susceptible to that is because we identify with our ideology or our political belief. So I am a Democrat or I am a Republican is this sense of identity. And so when the ego feels threatened, it goes to war, and because it feels like it's actually really real life and death, but it's just ideas, or I am pro-vax or anti-vax. And these people went to war with each other because from the ego's point of view, it is like a real threat, where it's not actually a threat. You're not actually going to die. There's no lion coming to eat you. It's just that someone's got a different idea than you. And so when we're in conversation, our sense of identity, if it's driving the bus and it's left unchecked, it gets in the way of communication, because communication is a coming togetherness. And you'll notice sometimes as a person, as a human, it happens to all of us, that you might be in a conversation, and if someone has a different point of view, you're queuing up waiting for a gap to jump in and defend your point of view and to show them how they're wrong. That's your ego. So the more aware we get of our ego and develop the ability to kind of car park it and just say, hey, it's okay. There's not life and death. Just car park your ego for a second and really listen, and even consider the opposing point of view. Even consider it, and with curiosity, seek to understand how they came to their position. It doesn't mean you need to agree with them at the end of the day, but if in that seeking to understand, in that curiosity, then there's connection, and when we connect, then we're communicating.
That is a very big tip. Yes, that's a big one.
Listen, okay, that was a big one. Here's a simple one. Pause before you react. Someone says something, you're about to react, pause, take a breath, and then notice the different options you've got in terms of how you respond. There you go. There's a short tip.
Well, that's the end of this episode. Thanks for listening. And if you like what you heard, why not tell a friend about this podcast? It's available in all the usual locations. Until next time.